What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to show you how to make this awesome low poly flower, how to set it up in a field and get the exact same render that I did that you saw in the thumbnail and that you see on your screen right now. Let's get straight into it. So to start out, I just have an empty scene here, and you're going to want to Shift A and add yourself an icosphere. And this is going to be the center of our flower. So we're going to go into edit mode, and we're going to scale everything down from the center. So we'll grab this top vertex, this bottom vertex here. Oh, that's not the bottom one. Let's grab the bottom one. And then we can circle and hold middle mouse click to deselect those, right click to deselect. And now we have our vertices selected. Go to proportional editing and scale down. And we're going to increase this strength of this a bit. Nice, I think that's pretty good. The center of the flower is not looking too bad. Let's go out of edit mode and into object mode, scale down on the Z. And there we go, I like that a lot better. So now I'm just going to take this, press Shift D and Y, move it over. Then I'll go to the top view, so you can press tilde and top. Then I'm going to go into edit mode. This is going to be one of our flower petals. So I'm going to hit Alt Z to go into X-ray mode. And with vertices, I'm going to select these guys over here. And I'm going to hit G and move them on the Y axis like this. That's a pretty good flower petal, not bad. And then hit Alt Z again to go back to normal view. Let's go ahead and line him up with the flower so that they're intersecting like this. That's pretty good. Now, typically on flowers, they're thinner towards the center right here and they're wider up here. So I'm going to go into edit mode once again with the same vertex selected, scale them on the x-axis and scale them out a little bit, which is pretty good. Then I'm going to scale them on the z-axis a little bit too, so that it gets a little fatter, just to give the low poly some style. It just kind of makes it flow a little better that way. Then we need to set the origin point of this to the 3D cursor. And to do that, simply right click, set origin to 3D cursor. And what this will allow us to do is we go back to top view, we can press Shift D, rotate Z, and then we can rotate along the Z axis like this, and it'll rotate perfectly around the flower in 360 degrees. So we can just place them at a pretty good distance. Then you can press Shift R and it will repeat the action you just did. Now, this didn't create a perfect circle, so we can adjust some of this a little bit by rotating on the Z axis and tighten things up slightly so that it lines up a little better. And obviously flowers aren't going to be perfect. They're not going to be perfectly 360 with their petals. So we're going to want to mix this up a bit with a simple deform modifier in just a bit. But first, let's go ahead and combine these into one object. So if you're making this for a game, you can combine it using booleans if you like. I'm going to go ahead and just join them like normal. So I'm going to select all the petals, select the center, and press Ctrl J. This will make it one object that I can grab and move around like this. The next step is going to be adding our stem. And that's not too hard of a process. It's actually really simple if you know how to do it. So Shift A, add yourself a mesh, and then let's go ahead and add a plane. Then we'll go into edit mode, select all the vertices and hit M and merge at cursor. This will merge all the vertices into one single vertice. And that's going to allow us to use the skin modifier. So let's go ahead and get that. Modifiers, add modifier, skin, which will give us some geometry around it. Then we can add a subsurface modifier just like this, and then we can edit it, and it's really cool actually. So if we extrude and hit Z, it gives us this geometry like this, and it's really awesome. I'm going to go ahead and turn off proportional editing. So we can just shape the stem however we want. I'm going to go ahead and re-enable our flower to see how big it is. Now, this flower is a little bit big. Scale is currently like 10 meters in like a area. Hopefully I'm doing my math right, but it's 5 by 5. And so let's scale him down to something a little more realistic. Obviously, you can make this as realistic as you want based on scale. We're just going for a nice flower render. So this stem is obviously way too big. So if we go into edit mode, press Alt Z so you can see your vertices through the mesh. And if you press A, we'll select everything. Then you press Control A to scale these and make everything a bit thinner. And that's looking a lot better. So I'm going to go ahead and hit GZ. And now at this point, we can decide how many flowers we want to have. Now, I want 3 on my flower. So I'm going to go ahead and go into front view. So press tilde and you can switch to front. And then I'm going to make 3 branches. So I'll press extrude. We'll make one that's going pretty much straight up. Then from this point, I'll make another point that goes off to the side like this. And then we'll grab him and move him a little bit in 3D space as well. Let's go ahead and add another one between this point and the bottom point. So select those two, right click and subdivide, adds this vertice right here, and you press GG to slide it up and down on that axis. So then I'll just extrude him out like this. And then as you can see, these center points are kind of looking a little bit too chunky. So I'm going to press Control A and scale them. Oh, we can't scale them down actually, but the endpoints are too thin. So we can press Control A and scale those down just a little bit. So the next step is going to be adding a little bit more geometry. So if we take this top point and this vertice, right click and subdivide, that'll give us an extra vertice essentially, which we can use to use the proportional editing. And then we can thin out the tops of the flowers so that it sort of gets thinner as they go out. So enable proportional editing again, select the end of the mesh, and then press Control A and scale it down a bit. And as we can see, it's now thinner at the top than it was here, which is exactly what we want. So if we press Alt C, we can see we're getting some warping on this one, and that's because we also need to do the same thing here. Select these two vertices, right click and subdivide, press GG on this guy, and I'm going to scale him by himself. And so yeah, if we do that, we can sort of get a much better connection joint there. So this requires a little bit of fiddling, but it's not too difficult. So let's go back to the end, press Control A and shrink my radius using the mouse wheel of proportional editing, and shrink him down to a thinner point like that. It's pretty good. And then just one last time, select these two vertices, right click subdivide, and Control A this last guy. And we have our flower set up. So the next step is going to be placing our flower on stems. And to do that, let's hit Alt C to go back to normal view, disabling X-ray. Let's grab our flower, move him up on the Z axis, and let's rotate him sideways a bit and place him there. That's pretty good. And then just make sure we're lined up. And at this point, let's go ahead and add some material so we get the colors. And we're also going to add a simple deform modifier to make the flower not so perfect. So let's do the modifier first. Let's go ahead and add modifier, simple deform. It should be right here. And as you can see, it just warps the geometry a little bit with twist. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at 45 degrees on twist. So then we can just press Shift D and place him on the other flowers. On the other stems. And then scale him down. Rotate him a little bit differently. It's pretty good. Nice. And then let's add one more. Shift D. Move over here. And then let's actually... How do we want to position this guy? Because I kind of want all the flowers facing the same direction. So on this arm, I think I'm actually going to edit it one last time. I'm going to take these two and I'm going to grab them and move them without proportional editing. So let's move them a little bit that way. And then you are going to come this way. You could slide along your axis a little bit. That's not bad. The geometry needs to be fixed a little bit though. As we can see, we're getting some slight messing up. Shrink this guy down and we have it fixed. Nice. So now let's go ahead and move the flower on the x-axis, slide him over, rotate him, and voila, we have our flower set up. Now these two are the exact same size, so I'm going to actually increase the size of the bottom one so we get a nice sort of pattern here. 3 different sizes, a little bit of randomness, and we just need to change the angle on the simple deform for the other two to give them a little bit more variance. So let's just make this one -45. Actually, I like that one at 45. It can be the same, but I'll rotate on the Z axis, local Z, by hitting Z twice, just to give him some random variation there. And this last guy, he's kind of intersecting there. So I'll rotate him on the Z, slide him over like that, and then switch him to a -45. See how that looks? I think that looks pretty good. So now we just need a camera, materials, and then a little flower pot. So I'm going to go ahead and line up the camera first. I'll press Shift A. Let's search for a camera. Select the new camera. Press Control 0 to make it the active camera. Hit 0 again to exit. And then find our camera angle that we want. Press Control Alt 0. And we have our camera now. So we can position this how we want. I'm going to hit G and Z twice to move him backwards. Let's zoom in a little bit with the focal length. And then I'm going to go up, grab Z, rotate XX to move him down. And we have a nice camera angle. So now let's add our flower pot. So to do that, it's really simple. I'm just going to press Shift A, grab a mesh cylinder. I'm going to scale him way down till it's about the right size. I'd say that's pretty good. And then from here, we can press Tab, Control R, and then we'll make a loop cut. We'll left click and then slide him up to here. Then we can press 3 Alt select these faces, and then Alt E, extrude faces along normals, thicken that up so that we have a little ridge at the top of the flower pot. So then I'm just going to take this face, I'll press X and delete it, faces, nice. Then this bottom bit, I'm going to go ahead and select this face and I'm going to scale them down so that we get a bit of taper going on here, which looks pretty good. Now this needs a solidify modifier because currently this face is the same as that face. So just hop over to modifiers, select solidify, and then now these faces are not the same, which will help fix shading and stuff. But we need some dirt in this flower pot. So for that, we need to apply our solidify modifier. So press apply, and then we have our extra geometry now. I'll press 2, Alt select this edge loop, and press F, and that will give us this face right here. So now let's just go ahead and add some materials. So, we need to shade these smooth, obviously. Something really important to remember is on the stem, make sure to go to the skin modifier and hit smooth shading. That'll increase the quality so much. Then select all of your flowers, right click and shade those smooth. Select the clay pot, right click, shade auto smooth. And now if you want, you can bevel these edges actually. So you press 2 and Alt select these two right here, press Control B, bevel, just to give them a little bit more of a softer look. You can also do this with this bottom one as well, just Control B, and then get a little bevel going there. So now for materials, let's go to the render preview. And I have no lights in my scene right now. So Shift A, add yourself a light, grab an area light, grab it, move it up on the Z, and then let's go ahead and increase his power quite a bit. I'm going to go ahead and switch to Eevee right quick so this works faster for the video. Let's go ahead and grab him, move him on the X-axis a little bit, oh, not rotate, grab, and then rotate on the Y-axis, move him up on the Z, and then let's increase this power quite a bit so that we get some nice looks here. So if we go to rendered, or the camera view, we can see that we have some shadows we don't exactly like, but the shadows on the top flower are pretty good. So I'm going to actually grab him and move him on the X a little bit back, just like this. And let's just stay in the camera view while we do this, so we get some good shadows on that top flower. Nice. See this sort of gap right here that we have, the shadow forming there? That's what we want. So these bottom flowers need some light, so we need a secondary light. So let's go ahead and duplicate this guy, press Shift D, and I'm going to move him a little bit. Let's go into top view for this though. I want to move him to the side over here, sort of an angle to my camera. So my camera's here, right here, my light is here. I'm going to move him down, grab Z, oh, not rotate, grab Z, and then let's go ahead and point him towards those flowers. So if we go back to our camera view and check it out, we can see that we have a lot more lighting happening. Now this first one is kind of washed out, and that's not exactly what we want. So we might want to change it up a little bit. And so I'm going to move him further on the X-axis this way, and then rotate Z more sideways like this. That might help a little bit. It's still a little bit washed out, and the second one is not getting the best lighting, but I think we're doing okay. So now let's just add one more light, our third light on the other side. Shift D, Shift Z, rotate Z. Nice, rotate him this way. Now, obviously they're all washed out because this strength is way too much. Let's lower him to something like a 10. And this is just like a soft light to soften up the shadows. And as we can see, the lighting here is pretty good. Let's go ahead and add our materials now. So for the clay pot, let's go ahead and add ourselves a brown. We want this to sort of be a darker brown because we don't want it to interfere. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and use the same materials I used before and give you all the hex values for them. So clay, I am using a hex value of AE5100. That is AE5100. It's an orange color about right here. Now, for the dirt, I'm going to hit plus sign, add my dirt material. Then if we tab, go into edit mode, select this face, select the dirt, we can press assign, and that will give it the dirt material. And for the dirt's hex value, I'm using a 33210D. That is a 33210D. Those are our materials for that. Then the stem, I'll go ahead and grab our green material. And the value for that is 28D34E. That is 28D34E, just like that. Then the flowers, really simple. For the petals on the main flower, I used a red. It's basically just a solid red. FF quadruple 0. And then your set, And so the iris of the flower is going to be a E7C E00. That is an E7C0E00. So to apply that to the iris of the flower, just press Tab, select a face, Control L. That will select everything linked to the center of the flower, everything connected with geometry. Select the iris material, assign, and you have it applied. So now just like the other flowers, select the one with materials left, Control L, link materials, and then we can just select the iris, Control L, and then iris assign. Same thing with the last flower, Control L, iris, and assign. And just like that, we have our main flower. So now for the other flowers, we need a ground first. And to do that, we're just going to add ourselves a plane. So Shift A, search for mesh plane. Let's go ahead and edit him in the camera view. So you press Tab. We'll go back to solid view so you can see this better. I'll press 1. I'm going to grab this vertice, grab and Shift Z, and I'm going to move him just beyond the corner of the camera view. Same with this guy. Grab Shift Z, just beyond the corner of that corner. And then same with the last two. So this flower pot is a little bit too low and it's kind of glitching through the plane. So let's take our flowers, our stem, and then parent them, or child them actually, to the clay pot. So select all the flowers in the stem, select the clay pot last, Control P, and Object Keep Transform. So now whenever we move our flower pot, it moves together. And this is going to be really useful when we are adding our particle system in a minute. So we kind of like the placement of our flower. So let's go ahead and move the plane down. Grab and Z. And this is a pretty good spot to be in. So the next step is just duplicating this flower and then changing the color, adding a particle system, and then doing some depth of field stuff. So to duplicate this guy, I'm going to go ahead and select all of his pieces, just like this. And I'm going to press Shift D, Shift Z, slide him over here. Then I'm going to make sure the flower pot is the active object. And you can tell that by seeing that it has the yellow outline around it. Then I'll press Control, or actually I'll right click, Convert to Mesh, so that applies all the modifiers. Then I'll press Control J, and that'll make them all one object that I can move around like this. So at this point, we want the origin to be at the base of the clay pot. Otherwise, when we apply the particle system, it'll be glitching to the ground like this, because it'll apply it at the origin point. So all we have to do is go into edit mode, Tab A, GZ, move them up. And now the origin point, is at the bottom of the clay pot and chilling. So let's go ahead and change the materials on this guy so that we get a different flower petal. So with the petal material, just switch that out for a new one. And the hex value I'm using is FFF496. Again, that is FFF496. To get him on the particle system, all we have to do is select the plane, add a particle system, hit the plus sign, select hair, and then we have to render as object. And then select our flower object. As we can see, everything's rotated a bit off. And so we need to enable the advanced setting on our particle system. Then head over to rotation, hit the checkbox, switch to global Z. And then we need to rotate our main flower so that everything appears upright on Z axis. So to do that, just rotate X, -90 degrees, Control A, and rotation. And that will move everything upwards. So then with our particle system, we can now randomize the phase and it'll give them random spins just like that. So as we can see, we have all these random flowers. Now they're a little small and our big guy is kind of in the way. So I'm just going to take the original and move him down out of the shot. So then with our camera, I'm going to select our plane, disable the outline so we can see a little bit better. I'm going to increase their scale just a little bit so that we can see it like this. And now we basically have a recreation of the thumbnail, other than the fact that the background isn't blurry yet. How do we do that? Really simple. Just select your camera. And to do that, we need to re-enable these lines, or you can select it up here. And then we can go to the camera settings, select depth of field and hit the checkbox. Then focus object, go ahead and select this icosphere at the center of the top flower. Then with your f-stop, we want to lower that to like a 0.5, which will blur the background a bit. And as we can see, everything's sort of blurring out just how we want it to, which is looking quite nice. Now this is Eevee, and so all we have to do is switch it to cycles and render it out, and we should be good. And if you want the colors to contrast better, head over to your color management, select high contrast or even very high contrast. This is the difference between none, it kind of looks more washed out, whereas high contrast looks a little bit more rich. And then all you have to do is render it out and you're good. Hopefully this tutorial has helped you and you learned something new and made yourself some pretty flowers. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.